The 4th of July is still 6 weeks away, but given the challenges that we face today, a reminder of why we celebrate.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Now, earlier today, a good friend of mine and I were talking about how surprising it was that so many Americans were willing to give up their inalienable rights for a government promise of safety. Basic liberties, the right to work, to travel, to worship, free speech, the right to attend school, to petition the government, to assemble with others. They all were completely sidelined or partially sidelined during the COVID-19 shutdowns. Officials assured us that restrictions would be short-lived and only be in place until we flatten the curve. But even after we did that, and hospitals thankfully were not overrun, blue state governors began piling on new conditions in order for states to be fully reopened again. They had complicated requirements in a New York 51-page reopening document. Michigan, then Illinois, and Washington State, they seem hell-bent on keeping people immobile and scared as long as possible. And now they found a new excuse for delay: the need for hundreds of thousands of so-called contact tracers.
The point of this is to create a core of trained folks who are ready and able, have the skills we need them to have to help usher us all through the new environment.
I know a lot of you don't answer the phone when you see an unknown caller reaching in, but I implore you to answer that call.
We want to grow our voluntary contact tracing so that we can further control and reduce the rate of spread of COVID-19 and stop outbreaks in their tracks.
Yeah, I trust him. Well, what TSA was to the post 9/11 era, contact tracing is to the COVID era. It's all for our own good and protection. That's what they say. And it seems fine at first, until maybe, like when you're talking about TSA, an agent's hand gets a little too close to your private parts during a random screening. And then they throw away your favorite moisturizer, right, because it's too many ounces. But at least your interaction with a TSA agent is brief and limited to only when you fly. Your interaction with a COVID tracer could last for weeks, if not longer. According to the AP, the practice of so-called contact tracing requires a hybrid job of interrogator, therapist, and nurse, as they try to coax nervous people to be honest. The goal? To create a roadmap of everywhere infected people have been and who they've been around. That's a heavy lift. So how many of these tracers will we actually need?
Health investigator Mackenzie Bray follows a script that she knows all too well.
I'm just following up on your COVID-19 test results.
Bray is among an army of health professionals and volunteers working as contact tracers. Some health officials estimate that as many as 300,000 contact tracers would be needed in the country to effectively mitigate the spread.
Are you kidding me? 300,000? So, remember I talked about how this kind of reminds me of the TSA, the creation of the TSA. Well, if the, quote, experts get their way, there'll be 6 times more contact tracers than TSA agents. But instead of rummaging through your luggage, these contact tracers will be prying into the most intimate details of your life. If you're found to have been in the orbit of someone who tested positive for the virus, they could monitor your whereabouts continuously until they determine you're no longer a danger to others. Now, right now, it may be only for 14 days or so, but what happens when the next expert tells us something different, maybe next week? What about your medical information? It's very personal to you. Well, according to the Tracer Training Program run by Johns Hopkins University that we had a producer actually sign up for today, it's required for tracers hired in New York. Your medical information will be kept confidential, they say, though perhaps not all of it. This is how one slide in that training program puts it. Your medical information cannot be shared with anyone else unless you agree to it. But your COVID-19 test results can be shared to protect public health. Well, why is that? Well, according to Johns Hopkins, it's because, quote, contact tracing programs are a public good. They can reduce illness and deaths from COVID-19. A public good. Again, it sounds fine, reasonable. But I thought in a representative democracy, the people get to determine what is in the, quote, public good. Not unaccountable experts at a university that receives millions of dollars in grant money from billionaires and corporate foundations. Given the enormity of the federal and state expenditures we're talking about here, it's amazing how little debate there's been about the risk to personal privacy. I'm telling you, there are always going to be plenty of reasons cited by government bureaucrats or unelected technocrats to justify taking your freedoms away. They'll cite scary things like gun violence, climate change, and now, of course, COVID, maybe the next virus. And they'll use our fear and maybe even skewed statistics or bad modeling to manipulate the public perception. They'll find experts who insist that the harm to personal privacy is minimal and that any trade-off is worth it. They'll promise their actions will be temporary and narrowly tailored. But invariably, these new programs, like what we saw after 9/11, will become permanent fixtures in American life and end up expanding far beyond their promised goals. I think back of the creation of the FISA court, the Patriot Act, just to name a few. Next thing you know, bad actors use them as weapons against innocent people. And they almost managed to undo a presidential election. The government can use a variety of tools to enforce its new normal. Using self-assessment tools is the least concerning, I think, from a personal privacy standpoint. But then there are these location devices using a variety of technological tools to monitor you. Yesterday, Google and Apple unveiled a phone app that lets you know when you've been exposed to someone who's COVID positive. And 22 countries have already signed on to use the app. Now, the tech giants did craft this app with user privacy in mind, so we'll give them a thumbs up for that. But according to the Wall Street Journal, the entire purpose of the app is to, quote, help public health departments track contact between strangers. Personally, I'd take whatever privacy promises, though, that some of these companies are making today with a grain of salt. The fact is, tracking technology can have a terrible chilling effect on individual freedom and even expression. The Supreme Court noted this a few years ago in its landmark ruling to enforce location data protections. The court in Carpenter versus the United States said detailed travel and location data provides an intimate window into a person's life, revealing not only his particular movements, but through them his familial, political, professional, religious, and sexual associations. And remember, those seemingly helpful COVID tracking apps are themselves windows into your life. Servers could be hacked, data stolen, and generally the data is available ultimately to anyone for theft or purchase. Advertisers, cyber criminals, even political adversaries, and so on. So can the government, federal or state, really ensure that our data not be accessible to any of the above? Of course the answer is no. You'd be naive to think otherwise. They could perhaps mandate, though, that the health information only be available to health authorities. But given how wrong so many of their health experts have been lately, you really can't blame Americans who have severe reservations about trusting them with their private medical information. Back to our Declaration. Our framers were really smart. Thomas Jefferson used that word inalienable to describe our rights for a reason. Americans are born free. We don't get our rights from the government, and the government can never take them away. The government may sometimes force us to make sacrifices, but not indefinitely, and not without a serious debate over what is, in fact, absolutely necessary to preserve the lives of others. Today, too many officials are forgetting those basic facts, and that's the angle.